Evening, fellow fellas. If you've ever been to the doctor before, there's a pretty good chance you've had your reflexes checked with that small pink hammer that hits your knee. The reason behind checking if your leg kicks up when he hits your knee with the hammer is basically just to see if your reflexes and then your general nervous system and your body actually works. And while we as regular uninformed citizens might look at one of those practices and go, wow, that's pretty weird, it's actually nowhere near or fucked up some of the other practices that doctors have been pulling throughout most of history. So today we will be looking at some of the weirdest medical practices throughout history. The first one is bloodletting. Bloodletting is a medical practice where people basically believe that they can clean their blood by just removing some of it from their body. The general idea behind bloodletting as a medical practice is that it would clean your blood and in turn balance something known as humors, which was a medical concept stemming all the way back from the antiquity. Humors is basically 4 elements that every body comprises of, and you need to have them quote unquote balanced to be, healthy. This basically means that if a person was sick, they were believed to have unbalanced humors, and one way to balance these humors out was just to remove some of your blood. The primary way bloodletting worked was that you would have a barber cut one of your major arteries, like the one in your neck or one in your bicep, and he would just let some of the blood flow out, and then you would just be healthy. They would also stick leeches onto your body for this bloodletting process instead of cutting one of your arteries open, since this also removed the blood from your body. Naturally, removing a lot of blood from your body doesn't actually make you more healthy, so practically everyone who actually got bloodletting done just went out more weak than when they came in. Did you also notice how I said that barbers actually put out this practice? If you've ever seen one of those red and white striped poles outside of a barber shop, that's actually where the idea behind that pole comes from. The red on these poles is actually the indicator for the blood, while the white just symbolizes the bandages. You see, all the way up to the 19th century, barbers actually did more shit than just cutting your hair. Oh, you have a rotten tooth? Well, don't even worry, they will just pull that tooth right out of your skull. Your arm is all swelled up and black from frostbite, but the barber will just cut it off for you. Next weird medical practice on our list is mercury. Mercury was used in medicine all the way up to the 20th century in Europe, as well as also being used in Chinese ancient medicine history. The Chinese, for example, believed that mercury would give you a longer lifespan if you were to ingest it. This in turn led to a lot of different emperors actually drinking mercury and in turn also dying from mercury poisoning. In European history, it was also believed that mercury would give you a longer lifespan. However, it was primarily used as a laxative and also as a cure for syphilis. A famous example of mercury being used as a laxative could be seen back in the 1800s during the Lewis and Clark expedition off the newly bought territory of the Louisiana Purchase. Naturally, they had to prepare for this expedition, and so they had to learn about the different sicknesses they could meet out in the frontier, and they were taught by one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, Benjamin Rush. Rush had also equipped him with a medical kit that contained 50 dozens of his very famous mercury pills that contained over 50% of mercury. These mercury pills were used as a laxative and were famously named the Thunderclappers. During the expedition, these pills were seen to be highly effective since Lewis and Clark had a very high meat diet and a very low fiber intake, so for this reason they needed to empty their bowels very often, and so they just took the pills and magically it worked. While you wouldn't necessarily die from mercury poisoning, you could get a whole bunch of different symptoms including muscle weakness, poor coordination, numbness in both the hands and your feet, skin rashes, anxiety, memory problems, trouble speaking, trouble hearing, trouble seeing, and you can also get permanent damage to your lungs as well as permanent brain damage. The next weird medical practice is trepanation. Trepanation is basically just a fancy word for drilling a hole into your skull. Trepanation is probably the oldest surgical practice that's ever seen in human history, and it dates all the way back to 10,000 BC. The primary figures for the practice of trepanation include things like spiritual purposes, at least in ancient times, where a person who was believed to have quote-unquote bad spirits inside of their head could get these bad spirits removed by just drilling a hole in the side of your skull. The primary things that people believed that trepanation could cure were things such as epilepsy, head wounds, mental disorders, and just a general headache. Apparently this practice was actually very popular during the Neolithic Age, where around 5 to 10% of the skulls that we have today from that time period actually show signs in one or another way of trepanning being done to the skull. While we are here, we might as well just give an honorable mention in this video to lobotomy. I don't gotta explain to you why lobotomies are dumb, but if you don't know what a lobotomy is, let me just quickly explain it. The way lobotomies worked were they would quite literally just take a long metal rod that was modeled after an ice pick, they would then take it, stick it through your eye socket and into your brain, move around all the brain gunk, and then just call it a day cause shit, then you would be cured. While lobotomies provided very mixed results, some people actually got their problems fixed while a lot of other people got even more problems being put upon them. A lot of the problems that people experienced after getting lobotomy done was things like not being able to speak, not being able to see, not even being able to move, or even deaf. Quick question, have you ever heard the phrase known as blowing smoke up my ass? While we today may know this phrase as lying to someone, you might have questioned where the origins of the phrase actually come from, and this is where we go on to our next medical practice. The next medical practice on our list is something known as tobacco smoke enema. Tobacco, since its discovery, has always believed to have been a very healing and good medicine for you, at least in Europe, and for this reason people used it in a whole bunch of different ways, but the most unusual one was something known as tobacco smoke enema. The general idea was that if someone had drowned, a person could then take a pipe or in other ways some sort of straw or tube, and you could either stick it into the mouth of a person, blowing smoke into their lungs to try and revive them, or you could do the more unusual way and take the pipe and stick it right up their rectum and then blow quite literally smoke into their ass. This is where the phrase stems from, blowing smoke up your ass, since it was actually turned out that this practice was just a whole bunch of baloney and it didn't actually work. Before we finish this video, I will just spitball some other pretty dumb medical practices throughout history. In Europe, it was believed that animal feces could be put into a wound to clean it faster. Small crushed precious stones such as sapphires and emeralds would be consumed to quote-unquote cure you from whatever you had. You could also balance the humors that I talked about earlier by just laughing. Arsenic was believed to be healthy for you, and it was used in a whole bunch of different medicines in the Victorian era. And finally, the nobles of Europe as well as China also drank gold to try and prolong their lifespan as well as cure them from different diseases. So remember folks, while we humans are very intelligent on the medical side of things, lobotomies happened around 50 years ago. It just goes to show that we don't know everything, and we will always learn from our mistakes. That being said, I gotta go catch a flight to Georgia soon, so I will be wishing y'all a beautiful day and one beautiful ass week.